Hello, everybody. Welcome back to DuckTales. I am Gabriel, the founder of DuckDuckGo. Today, I have with me Joe, and we're going to talk about donations. But you want to start by introducing yourself, Joe?
Thanks, Gabriel. So I am the senior public policy manager for DuckDuckGo. What does that mean? It sort of means that I'm sort of the person in DC who sort of tilts at windmills, talks to Congress, works with lawmakers, and otherwise tries to keep the rest of the company abreast of how the U.S. government and states are, pushing different types of regulations, solving online privacy, and trying to make the internet a better place for everybody.
Cool. Yeah, and there's probably a lot of good future episodes and all of that, which is the main part of your job. A small part of your job is you took over really running the process for which we make our donations every year. I realize it's a small part of your job, but it's an important one, and I think important to our users. So you want to explain just kind of what that is, or
Yeah, no, and look, I guess I shouldn't oversell it, but I actually think it's a really impactful part of the job. It's really, I think, like it's both, and we can talk about this, humbling and satisfying to be able to sort of allocate money to causes that are out there to try and improve trust online. So I'm I guess our DRI, our directly responsible individual for our corporate donations. And this has actually become a pretty elaborate internal process to look at a whole bunch of different organizations. Now, I already mentioned I'm in DC, so I think about civil society groups, the Electronic Frontier Foundations of the world. But we actually, we give to a whole lot of different entities and organizations. Sort of open source technology groups, online technology reporters, and other organizations that do really impactful journalism on technology and data privacy. And so, I think there's always sort of a push and pull to try and convince you to give us more money to give out each year. But, we give out, over $1 million to, I think this year it was something like 29 different organizations. And it's a detailed process. We spend a lot of months just arguing amongst ourselves about how we should allocate that money. And we have a bunch of different criteria for what goes into this. But we're trying to both provide impactful donations, and so that means we give to a lot of small groups. We're also trying to sort of ensure that these groups are not just like aligned with us on one or two things, but are really out there trying to make the internet a better place. I mean, the if anybody's been watching DuckTales, I think everybody would realize that DuckDuckGo is a pretty mission-driven company. And, we've got this goal of expanding trust online. And, we can't do that ourselves. And there are a lot of different entities out there in the United States and globally that are playing a really important role making the internet more trustworthy. And so we're constantly trying to find, new voices to elevate and new projects to support.
yeah. As completely slightly a tangent, but you mentioned it because this is inside DuckDuckGo. At DuckDuckGo, we have this concept of the DRI, the directly responsible individual. What that means is someone who owns something, and we have, as you might imagine, tons of processes internally. One of them being this our donations process, and every one of them has an owner, and so yeah, it's just a little inside baseball for us, but there's hundreds of those, and Joe owns this process, and it often gets over time that changes ownership. But that really means taking ownership of it and kind of driving it forward and seeing it to completion. But yeah, donations, I also see it as extremely key to our vision. So we actually started doing this a long time ago. Um, I think I have for anyone who wants to look at everything we've donated to, we have a page, duckduckgo.com/donations, and I just went
Good.
through
It's
it.
good that you got the microsite
Yeah,
out there. That's important.
yeah, exactly. It literally lists everything we've donated to, including this year, 2025, all the way back to, I guess the first year we did this was 2011, which is a long time ago. What I was going to say is directly related to what you said is that was right around the time when 2011 was the first year we had our first employee. It was me just before that. And, Kane came on. And when we did that, that's when we started laying out our vision, like explicitly our mission and vision. Um, and the vision in particular, raise the standard of trust online, hasn't changed since, and it's not going to change. But it was kind of tied to that. We said, you know, we're one company. I think it's really what you said. We can only do so much on our own. We have a much broader vision. How can we push that forward? Well, we could donate to other places that could really help. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
So no, I was gonna. I mean, so you used to. I mean, I think now we give to a whole bunch of different orgs that do a bunch of different things. But I know earlier it was, I think, sort of thematic. You know, let's give
Yeah.
to things that are going to fix tracking and make better secure communications. I mean, I guess as a team of two, I mean, were you guys initially trying to keep it thematic, or it was just the easy thing that you were working on at the time?
Yeah. I think it was in service of, to another one of your points, of making a bigger impact.
Okay.
And so like my original thought was the dollar amounts at the very beginning were very small because we were very small and had no real revenues or profits. So there wasn't much to give, but we figured out, we still put aside money to try to do so. And so when we were doing that, and I think some of this is carried through to today, we were really trying to find organizations that could really do a lot with a small donation, and that might have been an ongoing project where an extra few $1,000s could really help. And when it came to now, like maybe we give 25,000 or something, and that enables somebody to spin up a project or create hire someone part time
Yeah.
to work on something. I think those are the kind of things that can really make an impact. I think the reason for doing the thematic ones early on is it was just concentrating the small amount of money we have into one thing and hoping to make an actual difference on that thing. Now the dollar amounts are greater, but we're still picking themes. It's just probably 3 or 4 themes broadly in our donations. I would say. I mean, that's
Yeah,
what you're
yeah.
looking
I
for.
mean,
Yeah.
I think now we pretty much are settled on, I would say like open technology or improving internet technology efforts, data privacy, and then over the past few years, as we've been increasingly concerned about fair competition in digital markets, that's become a bigger chunk. But those are sort of the three buckets that I think we've sort of narrowed in on, at least since I've been in charge of this.
Yeah, and the process has evolved. Why don't you take us through kind of the current bones of the process as it stands today?
Yeah, no, that's a good question, and I think actually a good opportunity to encourage folks to reach out if they want. So we there's a couple of us internally that try to spend some time over the year just sort of monitoring what groups are working on, what they're doing, whether it's basically sort of a subjective assessment of how impactful they are. And then we have, I think it's usually about a 3-month process that we kick off in early summer, to just sort of figure out like generally what are we interested in supporting over the year. And I think things that I think it's worth highlighting that we're a pretty community driven company. We're also a team member driven company. I think it's been really rewarding to have just colleagues suggest organizations I'd never heard of, and that gets in there. So we are very much open to new ideas, and we support organizations globally, so I'm sure there's plenty of things we have not heard of. So we create like a giant list of organizations, and then we put it into a little bit of a rubric, and basically ask a number of questions about what we think the organization can do in the next year, what actually would be impactful. Your point is totally valid. Like we've given money to support like things like organizations being able to train up an employee. And, I think as you well know, like going from 1 to 2 employees can be hugely impactful, for certain organizations. We've also, our support has allowed certain organizations to offer like health insurance to employees, which is not really sort of makes you realize how, some money can go a long way in things that are not just related to core, tech projects, but literally people's day-to-day well-being. So we have this sort of rubric involved, and then we narrow it down. so part of the issue is we'd like to have a diverse, both geographic and ideologically diverse group of organizations. We also sort of at this point have standardized our donation buckets a little bit. And so when we also, like to keep a similar number of organizations. We started with, I think, 6 maybe, and we're up to 29, and it becomes, and I think I'm one of these people. I'd love to give to every organization that exists, but
And what are the buckets too? You mentioned buckets, like what kind of
oh, yeah,
buckets
that's a good question. So right now we've sort of give organizations $25,000, $50,000, and then $100,000. Now there are some exceptions to that, but that tends to be where the donations fall. And yeah, like there's part of this is a lot of people are involved, and I should say, like, it takes a village. It's not just the policy team, it's the communications team that work on things here. You obviously have to get involved at some point. I think it's really important, and they deserve all the credit in the world, and maybe a DuckTales episode of for themselves. Our finance team has to do a lot of stuff here, and that's like the nitty gritty paperwork and taxes and stuff that is not super, well, it might be fun for them, but it's not as glamorous as the laudatory press releases we get from some of these groups. And so we have changed over years, like when we have given donations. In the past, we've tied it to Data Privacy Day in January. We've tied it to sort of Giving Tuesday after U.S. Thanksgiving. This year, we gave out our donations much earlier in September, and part of that's just because, and I'd actually love to ask you, like, I know we've tried to get our community involved, and I know we've tried to sort of make donations a moment in time, but it's not the most attractive story in a world where we're dealing with AI regulations and competition breakups. So like, it is always a question of like, when is the time to announce this in a way that could actually be impactful? And I think that's an open question we've struggled with.
Yeah, I've never cracked that code either. So I open to your ideas there, and it maybe is the case. Yeah, we wanted to kind of like batch it so we could put it on the microsite and be like, here's everything we did. And so I know we've given earlier in the year to some organizations who kind of needed it then, but then we tell back the announcement. But yeah, maybe there's another way to do it where we kind of trickle it in over the year or something. I have no idea.
I mean, if anybody out there has ideas and wants to reach out on Reddit or social media, I think I'm here to facilitate that. I mean, I guess I should also say, look, we're always trying to ensure that Gabriel's email isn't flooded with requests and demands. So, I mean, one of the reasons I'm here today is, if you're an organization or an entity or you're a project that you think is in line with improving standards of trust online, please reach out. I'm happy to give you more information. Happy to add you to our list of folks that we consider in 2026. But I think part of my job as the policy person at DuckDuckGo is really to serve as a point of contact, and I'm here to answer anyone's questions if you want to reach out.
Yeah, well, people may take you up on that. To forward that further, I would say another thing that kind of distinguishes us initially, and this is in service of making an impact, but I'm pretty sure we still do this too, is we're not really tying the donations to anything. A lot of philanthropic organizations say, you have to use it for this project, it has to be earmarked for this. To your point, supporting the organization for health insurance, I think that's fine with us. We're looking for impactful organizations where the money can really make a big difference. But if that's the thing that's going to make the organization more impactful, that's okay with us, because we're more about the organization like doing the job that it's set out to do, its mission. Like,
Yeah.
we have our mission. We're like supporting the mission of the other organization. And we want the organizations to exist. and often to exist, you need to give, in this example, your team members health insurance.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, look, I would say that our donations have never really had any strings attached as far as I've been running them. It actually leads to some interesting back and forths with groups. So, and this is relevant because I just had a conversation with them. So this year we're actually giving some money to Consumers International as part of their effort to kickstart basically a year-long process to build ethical and privacy principles around agentic AI and AI privacy. And so, they approached us and really wanted to know what our involvement would be. And they were like, this would be a good thing for you guys to get involved with. And we're like, sure, here, like run with it. You don't need our okay to come up with privacy principles. We support privacy generally. And if you guys come up with something that we can adopt, that would be great. But it's not like you need us to rubber stamp what a global consumer group wants to do on AI privacy. So that's been another interesting example, and it is also like something I certainly appreciate is a number of the groups over the year like reach out and they want to like check in, and they have a whole lot of stuff going on. Some of it super relevant to DuckDuckGo's interests, some of it pretty far removed. And it's, at least from my perspective, it's a really interesting opportunity to get exposure to stuff that doesn't fit into, I think, the four corners of DuckDuckGo's policy priorities.
Yeah, that's interesting. So yeah, you mentioned them. Are there any other organizations you think we should highlight maybe that we've given to a lot over the years? I mean, the one that jumps out to me is EFF. I know we've had many years given to them, given to Tor many years.
Yeah, I mean, the Tor project was there from the beginning, as far as I can
Right.
tell.
Yeah, I think it was. So yeah, I think I don't know how many. Do you have a count of like how many different organizations we've given to?
Yeah, and I put this into Duck AI earlier today, so if it's wrong, it's not my fault. We have given to a little under, I think, 100 organizations total over the past
Okay.
15 years.
And so, so there's been a lot of different organizations if we're doing about 30 a year. But yeah, there's been some that have been there a lot. And so, like, I know Tor, EFF, Signal over the last few years comes to mind. I'm not sure if any other ones you want to highlight or just from this year, even. Maybe we haven't given it several years, but you just wanted to name a few.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think one thing that I think is worth highlighting is we have increasingly given to organizations that focus on competition policy. So in that respect, I want to give a shout out to Public Knowledge, which is a group that we've funded considerably. I mean, this is a policy plug, less than a donation plug, but there aren't a lot of tech focused groups that think about competition, and Public Knowledge is one of the exceptions to that. And from our perspective, there's huge hosts of problems with that. Like when you have lots of big companies, they don't have an incentive to protect privacy, and so supporting groups that sort of work at that intersection of competition and privacy has been increasingly important to us.
Cool. Yeah, this has been great. Anything else you want to highlight that we maybe didn't cover?
Man, I probably should have a better answer for that. I mean,
Well, the answer could be we did a great job and we've covered all the bases, and that's it.
No. I mean, look, I think there's one of the things I have learned at DuckDuckGo is that there are always ways to improve processes, and we've talked a little bit about our process. We are always trying to figure out ways to be more, I think, transparent with groups that are interested in funding and want to know, why we're not funding them. And so, again, I'll just say that I think I exist to be a resource for that. So, if you're interested in funding, please reach out. And I guess I'd say, as we try and make this more of an established process, the earlier that folks can do that, the better.
Yeah. Okay, that's a good place to end. Thank you for doing that too. I just never want to say no to people, and so I always find that an awkward discussion. But yeah, there's only so much.
We've had some interesting conversations with groups this year.
Yeah. But thanks, Joe, for coming on. Yeah, reach out to Joe if your organization. Otherwise, check out our donations page. It's duckduckgo.com/donations. Everything's listed there back to 2011. And otherwise, hope you tune in for the next episode. Thank you.
Thank you.